continue right now with the creative mentorship. You can grab your coffee or something and be ready for Vishnya's workshop, because it will be very interactive. Just a few minutes that I open my text, yes, and say a few words about Višnja Kisić, who is assistant professor at the Faculty of Sport and Tourism in Novi Sad, lecturer at UNESCO Chair MA in Cultural Policy and Management in Belgrade, and University Hassan II in Casablanca. She is a visiting professor at the University of Lyon and International Relations University in Beijing. She has a background in art, history, cultural policy and management, and heritage studies. So really an international expert with a huge experience, a lot of publications, and she's also a founder and the member of the creative mentorship team, which can be a way out for us to continue exchanging knowledge and maybe get involved in mentorship practices, which can be useful for many. Višnja, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Goranka, and thank you everyone for having me and being here in such a big number. Actually, Goranka has stated a few things from my CV, and I think there's some explanations to make as well, because these names of universities and so on are kind of clear once you know that my career path has been quite unusual. I would say that at the same time, I've been trying in the last 15 years to be following some sort of academic path and follow my interest and curiosity in research, maybe mainly in heritage and museum politics and how we manage them and how we relate to the people and social transformations around us. But then I've been also working as a heritage professional, as a curator in official museums, but also a lot in the non-governmental sector. And as I mentioned, now also as a trainer or consultant for many museums, both in the region and internationally. And then one part of that is being an educator. And in all of that, creative mentorship is something that doesn't appear usually on my CV. It's something that is kind of, if you follow this kind of heritage and cultural management path, it doesn't appear to be that relevant, or it appears to be quite schizophrenic, some might say. But actually, creative mentorship has been, I think, a thread in the last 10 years of my life that has been constantly asking me to go out of my, on one way, comfort zone, out of my field of expertise, to meet with other people and to meet with many different professions, and also to think of the ways beyond academia and beyond formal institutions of how we can share knowledge and how we can create these support systems that go beyond what is institutionally possible, what is academically possible, and what is formally possible. And that's why I'm still an eager promoter of mentorship in the way in which I would try to present it to you today, and try to kind of seed that small seed of maybe you becoming a mentor, or maybe you becoming a mentee and finding a mentor after this session. So besides the coffee that you might need, you will definitely need a paper and a pencil. We'll try to work in a bit of a self-reflective manner.
Paper and
so it
pencil,
won't be
please.
this workshop in which you are constantly in breakout rooms discussing. It will be a discussion mainly with yourself, and I will be leading through different questions. But before we start that, I want to just share the screen so that we can all follow the same things. And okay. So here we are. I'm just checking, how do you see this one? because I don't see it as a full screen. I also
We don't see the full screen, just yeah.
Okay, just a moment then. Just want to open a different version and then maybe it will be easier with the PDF. Okay, so let's try again.
Good. Okay.
Okay, it should be fine now. Basically, today I want to kind of make this thesis that mentorship is a really excellent method of professional development for which you don't have to enter a new study. You don't have to maybe devote a whole year of your life. You can have it as an everyday practice, as a practice that you're living, and have mentoring relationships from time to time. And that is usually not how we are kind of taught about mentorship, especially in this part of the world. I think for me and also all of us who have started creative mentorship program in Serbia, there were certain things that we considered mentorship or mentoring. One is having your academic mentor when you're doing your bachelor thesis or master or PhD thesis. And usually for most of us, this wasn't a very pleasant experience. I think there's a lot of kind of waiting for comments. You have to adapt to certain structures. There's no this feeling that someone wants to share all of that, their knowledge and resources and capacities with you. So it's a bit of a struggle to think about mentorship in a positive way in that sort of setting. Then another kind of idea we had is this mentorship that happens once you are a young professional and you enter into different institutions, including cultural ones and including the museums, and you do a year-long internship or apprenticeship. You get assigned a person from the museum who will be your mentor, but then again, it means mainly a person who is using you to help in some of their work and kind of introducing you slowly to the museum framework, but not in the way that opens your perspectives in terms of what museums could be, how we could change maybe some of the things that are not functioning, or how you could find your own role and contribution within that institution. And basically, these two ideas of mentorship have really been challenged for us back 10 years ago, back in 2000, actually 11, so 12 years ago. We were part of a program in which different, especially successful women from Sweden were coming to Serbia via Swedish embassy, and they were meeting with a group of us, 10 of us, as young cultural professionals, sharing their career paths, their kind of life decisions, what makes them who they are today professionally. And basically in all of their kind of narratives, in all of their stories about their careers, there's been these important transition points and milestones and moments where they kind of felt they reached the maximum of what they could reach themselves. And they wanted to either go a step further in that, or they wanted to kind of redirect to some other direction or some other path. And in all of those situations, each of them has mentioned that actually having a mentor has been helping them in that way. Having a mentor, which in Swedish society at that point meant that you can just contact the person whom you want to be your mentor and ask them for this professional and personal support, even if you don't know them, even if that's not a part of your kind of professional context and professional circles. And that is something that is considered kind of quite normal in the society. There's also many kind of featured and specialized programs for museum sector, for communication sector, from different sectors within science, and so on and so forth, that have mentorship programs as something that helps either young professionals, or it helps already kind of established professionals and leaders kind of go forward in their own personal development, but also go forward in their professional development. So creative mentorship and the mentoring process that I'm going to present you today has been actually for us a way to rethink mentoring and to rethink what mentorship could be. So within Creative Mentorship Program, which now lasts for 10 years, we've had these different ideas that mentoring is actually not related to academia and not related to writing your thesis or just finishing a project, that it's not related necessarily to kind of finding your own way within an institution, that it's not necessarily related to kind of mentoring within the single discipline or within the single area of work. And that actually you can have a mentor that is older than you, but you can have a mentor that is younger than you and is giving you these perspectives of what it means to be a teenager in today's world and how they use social media, how they use their free time and so on, which really helps you, for example, as a museum director or as a person working in the educational department, to conceive and rethink the programs for example, teenage population. And then throughout these years of work, there's been a lot of kind of thinking about what kind of mentorship is all about. And repeatedly through evaluations of the program each year, a lot of what we get are these sorts of things, these sorts of kind of benefits of mentoring. So it is a very interesting way of professional and personal development. It is a way to exchange knowledge and experience, of course. It's definitely one of those ways in which you can kind of learn throughout life without having to enter into the formal educational system. It can be something that nurtures out of the box thinking and creativity and innovation, especially if it happens in a way that you are mentored or you mentor someone who is from another discipline, another culture, another sector. So in a way, mentorship brings this idea of kind of being ready to transgress sectors, to learn from some other discipline, to learn from some other culture and context, and to learn from another generation. It means a lot when it comes to networking and basically building your own support system that is not depending only on the institution in which you work or friendly relationships or family relationships. So it's a different, a bit divergent support network that you're creating. It definitely helps for widening perspectives, also for getting to know stories and decisions and challenges of someone who has maybe been in your shoes or in a similar shoes few years ago and has successfully kind of redirected from there. What we usually see in these kind of official formal conversations is not what actually happens backstage. And mentoring is a perfect way to actually have that backstage insight into someone's decisions, someone's struggles, someone's lives, and someone's tools of coping with different challenges professionally. It also means an immense inspiration, both for mentors and for mentees. It means a lot when it comes to nurturing trust and openness in people. And a lot of people who have been going through a mentoring programs, including creative mentorship, say that actually, usually in professional context, we are not taught to kind of share openly our opinions, our fears, our feedback, all that we know, because we are afraid of judgment, or the setting and organizational culture is not such that we can easily give feedback and have feedback back. So mentoring is that sort of relation through which you are basically kind of exercising the muscles and this kind of honesty muscles and openness muscles and building trust among people. And it's also about sharing and caring in a professional setting, which oftentimes can be very competitive and can be very hostile. So it is this way of kind of sharing knowledge and sharing what you know, but also taking from others what they know, so that we can all move through these professional waters more securely, with bigger support and with bigger inspiration, I would say. And it's actually great that today there's, I think, 3 alumni of Creative Mentorship. Alexander from Terra Museum, who actually had Goranka for his mentor, Goran Kahorian, who has been a mentor in the last cycle of creative mentorship. And that's why I guess she invited me to give this workshop. And then Lidia Milashinovic from Kikinda has also been a mentee a long time ago. So I would like then to invite them later on to share some of their perspectives. I think if we talk about these benefits of having a mentor, it is really about acquiring this tailor-made knowledge and skills that at the moment serve your particular needs. So if you go to a specific training, if you go to a specific formal education program, what you learn there is pre-made or pre-planned, and you are just one of the participants kind of learning from already established kind of bucket of knowledge. In mentorship, because it's one-on-one relationship and because it is something where you can ask questions that come from your very specific contemporary needs, actually you can redirect the relationship to be very suiting to your own needs. It means also having a special advisor for suggestions, directions, planning, support when you need it. Having also this time for reflection, time to plan, time to analyze more than you usually do in your own kind of everyday professional life. It usually brings better insights in your strengths and weaknesses and areas of development, and we'll try to kind of simulate some of those tools even today. It brings new perspectives and attitudes towards challenging situations because there's a person that you can openly reflect with and kind of exchange different strategies, and it broadens your support network. And I would just like you to kind of type in the chat, if you can, what are your first associations when you kind of think of mentorship, and are they similar to what I've just talked about, or there's some more negative connotations? Yeah, just a very quick exchange in the chat, but also over there in the
Okay,
room.
online on the chat in the room, if someone would like to write a few words, ideas you asked for a reflection, what would that be? Any ideas here? Strengths and networks would be something we chose. What happens in the chat?
Can someone read the chat for me? Because
Goran, can you open the chat? That we see the chat.
I think there's nothing in the chat at the moment.
Yeah, that's true.
But out of all of you here, did some of you have this mentoring experience that is not related to the time when you were doing an internship in a museum, or to the time when you were writing your master thesis or bachelor thesis or PhD?
Well, in museums, people are usually mentors during the practice, obligatory practice for a curatorial exam, for example. So almost everybody had this professional, how to say, surveillance over a candidate for the exam. That's more closer to internship, Darko says, yes,
Yeah.
which is really, really the case, yes.
And I think what happens there, because I was part of that process as well, kind of becoming a curator officially, what happens there is that actually, similar as in academia, you are making sure that someone is meeting the requirements already kind of set and formalized by the much bigger system, so that basically that work, that thesis or that professional kind of paper is meeting those requirements, and that means that someone then can enter into the profession. What is different with this kind of mentorship as practiced in the Creative Mentorship Program and many other mentoring programs that are currently available is this idea that you don't actually, that you get a mentor not in order to satisfy some pre-planned formal requirements, but actually to reconsider your priorities, to reconsider what are your challenges and in which directions you would like to develop, and then have a fresh perspective in terms of how you can develop in a way that is really suiting your own needs, your own character, and of course the context and institution for which you work in. But it's much more kind of focused on a person than on a kind of formal system of requirements, I would say. Okay, so for most of you, it was this museum formal experience. And then I know some of you who've been part of creative mentoring program or some other programs. What I wanted us to do today is actually go through
and grab a coffee.
Yeah, to go through the simulation of several steps, which I think can help you start a mentoring experience. Because that can be part of a formal program, but mentoring, the way that we are thinking about it, is actually about your attitude, your self-awareness, and your kind of eagerness to search for help at the moment when you need help and assistance in some direction. And on the other hand, to respond for the call for help from someone who needs your knowledge at a particular moment. So there's 5 steps that I think are really important when you think about mentor and entering into mentoring relationship. And I would like us to go through each of those steps, simulate them, even though each of them requires much longer time to be thought about. So one first step is basically setting the goal for mentoring, setting your development goal and your priority areas for development. That is important because otherwise mentoring becomes just open-ended conversation that doesn't have a direction. On the other hand, it's important because it sets you in a way that you are focused on your own needs and development, and you can ask from a mentor what you really need to know or insights that you need to get. And I would just state some type of goals that you might have, but then for all of you, that might be something very different. I just want to give you some of the ideas. So for example, your goal could be transforming your museum towards a more sustainable business model. And that means either being more financially sustainable, but also being more ecologically sustainable, and how to make your museum kind of more ecological, greener, more kind of sustainable when it comes to using human resources and when it comes to using finances. Your educational background and your experience so far doesn't have to make you entitled to make that sort of change. And you might feel that this sort of transformation would be overwhelming without some sort of help. And for this type of goal, it is actually very interesting to have as a mentor someone who has been leading their museum already through that sort of changes, or someone who has been leading their own kind of company or another type of institution through that sort of changes, so that you have a bouncing kind of partner for ideas and for recommendations and so on. Or your goal could be to root museum in the local community and create more connections with the local community, more relationships, more visits, and more visibility, and so on and so forth. And for that, there might be someone who has already done that, or might be someone who is actually a kind of local community expert that is dealing with participation and building your own relationship within local community, who can be your mentor in that sort of area. It can also be, for example, the goal of developing international cooperation and exchange within your museum in the next 3 years. Or it can be very personal goal or personal professional, such as finding a better work-life balance in a situation in which you might struggle because you work for 15 hours a day and have very little time for yourself. And there's many professionals who come to creative mentorship with this sort of goal in one way or another. Or it can be about improving your communication and delegation skills, or it can be about learning how to strategically plan. So all of those issues could be a goal which you set for the mentoring relations. And what I would like to ask to do now is actually do a small exercise, just 10 minutes, each of you with your own kind of paper and pen, trying to set this goal, trying to see, okay, what are key problems and challenges? And I think you've been doing yesterday this kind of wheel of problems or wheel of issues and challenges. So you might have some ideas in that regard. Which issues and development areas are the most urgent for you? Which of these priority areas fit into a wider strategy and vision, either for yourself or your museum? And which ones cannot be solved with your current resources, skills, and networks? So basically, in a kind of, when you have more time, you really take time to kind of sort out and put all the problems and challenges that you're facing at the moment, then try to turn them into the positive developments and see what sort of priority areas for development they could be. And then you look at all of them with these three criteria in mind. What's urgent, what's relevant in a sense that it fits into the wider strategy and mission, and what cannot be solved with what you already have at your disposal. These three criteria are actually the ones that, if when a development goal meets them, that means, okay, this is a development goal that is very good for mentoring, that is very good for inviting someone to be kind of mentoring me and helping me through these waters. So I would like you to just think about a goal for yourself, the development goal. Some of you might have that in mind already without going through all those questions, while for some of you, some of these questions might be very relevant to think about that. Also, for those of you who have a clear goal already, think about the desired time frame, try to illustrate it. Like, how does a future look like if this goal is being achieved? What does the media say? What does, you get an award and how does it feel, and so on and so forth. But yeah, I will leave you for 10 minutes now with these questions kind of.
Okay, please follow Vishnya's instructions and use your pen and paper and really think of a goal for your museum that you would like accomplish and how to do it in a proper or desired time frame. It's too small. Sorry. Could you come in front, please? Could you come closer then, please? Is it possible, Goran? Just one information for everybody. We will have PowerPoint presentations online so that you don't need to write the texts. So you will be reminded every time you go to the project what questions have been asked.
Yes, and I will be sending via Goranka some more, I would say, tools and methods from creative mentorship websites.
Yes, so creative mentorship will encourage, of course, even if you want to further inform yourself on the possibilities to take part into the courses and mentorship programs, of course.
Yeah, but I'm just thinking for those of you who struggle to set your goal through these sorts of mechanism, because we always have people who are like, I don't want to be setting myself into kind of precise goals and so on. And I think questions that might help open up kind of something that is really authentically your goal or wish for development is trying to start the sentences like, what do I desire? What do I long for? What I'm wishing for myself or my museum, so that they kind of tackle this more kind of intuitive, emotional, and not this kind of very rational and strategic mind. So for some of you, some of those questions might actually be kind of
People
more
in the
relevant.
room are very busy. I can say they are writing
Perfect, perfect.
at full speed. Yes. So I don't know how it is online, but I hope you are engaged with the task.
Okay, can we have a few more seconds just to wrap up what you're doing? And then I would say if some of you want to share your goal, it would be really inspiring to hear at least like 2 perspectives. Of course, you can choose not to share and that this is something that is very kind of private and yours. This is why we are doing it alone and not in groups. Yeah, okay, let's stop here with this exercise. I know that it requires much, much more time, and I really invite you to go back either today or one of the following days, and try to really focus, take 1 hour or 2 hours for yourself and go much deeper into what you have written now. Let's just see if there are any volunteers who want to share their development goal.
Okay, so we are back, and can we see maybe the participants? If somebody, yes, Ljubisha is here with his goal, please.
Well, I hope I didn't misunderstand. Is it like personal goals, or I can say museum goals?
It can be either of the two.
All right. I mean, this is very, very similar to the process we go through when we're doing strategical planning. It's the segmentation through lower, like smaller segments. And for me, like two main goals in the museum, the new buildings. Since right now we don't even have heating or anything. It's an old building from the 60s. So that's one goal. The second goal or priority is new staff. We are understaffed. Right now, the whole administration is run with the accountant and myself. So those are my two main goals. Which ones I can achieve? For example, for the building, I would need like €500,000. So I know that's a little bit far-fetched at the moment. So I try to segmentate that in what's the most important part of the building that's needed right now. And in my opinion, that's heating, because workers during winter time are working on very cold temperatures. And yeah, that's not very good, neither for their health nor for the artifacts in the museum. So I went from €500,000 to €50,000, and that's something more feasible and something the stakeholders would accept much likelier than €500,000. My first problem, the staff problem, of course, that's another issue, because we have politics. A lot of staff comes to, I mean, I don't know in other countries, but in Bosnia in general, everything is intertwined with politics. But it's also possible, in my opinion, that's one of the reasons why I'm trying to put on a greater visibility for the museum. If I put greater visibility, the stakeholders will take notice. When they take notice, I need to make the need. For example, prior to my arrival, in all the annual reports, they used to say that the art department was doing 100% of their job, even though we didn't have a curator or an art historian. We didn't have one. So I told them, no, we're not doing anything. We go to 0%. This way, we exclaim to the stakeholders, this is our need. We're not going to be producing this, but we also need to, the visualization part is very important to attract the stakeholders. Once you attract them, you tell them, oh, I'm sorry, but we cannot do it again or more. We need more staff, or we need heating, or we need a little bit more of investment. So it's like fishing, in my opinion. But yeah, in its core, I think it's very important to critically analyze every segment and to compartmentalize. The smaller the compartment, the easier the problem is to solve.
Yes, and thank you, Ljubisha, for this, because you really went from a very big problem or a big goal to smaller ones. And then I would say, if you translate this to a kind of mentorship development goal, because of course, mentor cannot give you €50,000 or €500,000, then the question is, okay, what is my strategy for getting these 50,000? And one direction might be, okay, I want to get a mentor that is with whom I'm going to work on kind of communication and understanding between me and decision makers. And for example, we had some situations in which we were pairing a politician with someone who is a cultural manager, only in order to kind of get that perspective get kind of grasp of that sort of language, how you relate to them, what sort of priorities, with what sort of ideas you can come, and what are the arguments that work or don't work. And for example, this is the way how the cultural attaché of Sweden that was back then in Serbia, she's a curator, ethnographer, but she had a mentor who is Minister of Foreign Affairs. And basically 10 years later, she became a diplomat, and that was her kind of goal. So that's one direction. Another direction might be, okay, these 50,000 don't have to be given by the public municipality. They can be given by the private corporate sector. So I'm going to search for a mentor which is coming from that area, and then see how I can diversify my funding and kind of redirect the communication towards business sector so that they are visible. Or my strategy could be, I know especially in Bosnia and Herzegovina, there's been museums such as Historical Museum in Sarajevo or Zemaljski Muzej. They had two very different strategies when it comes to lack of heating and lack of resources for the building. Yeah, think about kind of, can we pair with them and see how we can cooperate. So I'm just trying to say that actually one single goal can be then made into several different strategies for what it means to finding a good mentor. And we'll be dealing
Yes,
with that.
and there are EU fundings. EU fundings, maybe somebody who is experienced in that.
Exactly. And you'll see how we search for a good mentor in just 2 steps time. Okay, I would like us to move then to the next one so that we have time to go through everything. And the next one is actually, now you have set a goal and specified it. The next step is really kind of reassessing yourself, basically trying to map your current skills, knowledge, contacts in terms of museum, even resources. But basically asking yourself, which skills, knowledge, and contacts do I already have for pursuing that goal, and which ones do I miss for achieving it? And there's this very useful, very basic table in which you can be mapping these sort of things. So basically one column is saying, I currently have these skills, knowledge, contacts. Another one is saying, I don't have, but would need them in order to achieve the goal. And then I have been listing some of the possible skills that you might have or you might lack, and you can just kind of get an idea of different directions in which this can go. Also in terms of knowledge, is it an expert knowledge in the area of museum work, about legal procedures, about business models, about international markets, how they function, trends in museum sector, EU cooperation. So you will know, depending on your goal, what is there to be put. And then when it comes to contacts, think about both family and friends, as well as local and international networks, local stakeholders, businesses, professional associations, decision makers. All of those contacts should be in your mind and on your list, either in the I currently have or I don't have, but I might need. So let's take another 5 to 10 minutes to kind of quickly try to go through this. And again, another exercise that could take 2 hours of focused work.
Okay, detecting what we miss now. So if we can continue, some people are started to invent other goals here, like going to Caribbeans. It's a creative mentorship, and they become extremely creative.
Yes, of course. Okay, let's have just someone who's going to volunteer to tell us, okay, what sort of contact you would need for your goal or skill or knowledge, but you don't have it currently.
Okay, anyone with a goal? Have you set any goals that you can come here? Yes, please come here. Yes. And the skills you need to implement them. Yes.
Yes. So my previous first goal is ownership and legacy problems with the building. So I have.
What skills you don't have to solve it?
For now, I have all skills.
For now, yes.
For now,
Legal
but
also.
yes, because I have consultants, several of them. So we are managing that more than I was suspect. So this is, but this is a long time goal because the museum is in one old building and we need more space than museum has. So we have to, after managing this ownership problems, we need to we have we need to, how to say, manage atmosphere and invite government and our municipal politicians also on one table, and that is very hard to do because they are opposite in ideology, and it is very hard thing to do, but there is a light, optimistic light in that, because we need more space and they have to change their spaces in different buildings. I think that you are in the same position with your museum, because our stakeholder is city, municipal, and the building is from government. So we have to change meters and spaces.
Yes. So the question is whether the external consultant is a solution in this.
Yes, for legal problems, it is optional because I'm not lawyer. And for lobbying,
Yeah.
for lobbying, it is also I need support, and I have some support in that some groups that also have same problems. So we will do the same things from another parts, from different points. So this is my crucial problems.
Thank you.
And the second one is museum staff as community. I didn't say that because before, but I think that this is the base for strategic planning, because staff workers don't believe in strategic planning if they are not connected as a team, as a community. So it is the second goal of mine.
Thank you. Thank you, Višnja.
Thank you a lot. And okay, let's move forward to the third step. And once you have these development goals and you saw that each development goal can be more and more specified so that it can be actually tackled. A lot of your goals are very, very big kind of visions, and that should be more and more specific. Then when you have done this exercise of kind of actually mapping and structuring which skills and knowledge and context you have, but which you don't have, and sometimes that is good to do with some other colleague next to you or with a friend next to you, so that someone can pose you a question and maybe ask you from a perspective which you don't see at the moment. Then you go into thinking about what could be a mentor profile. So basically, which knowledge, experience, and skills this person should have. And usually those would be some of the skills and experiences which were in that column of yours, of those skills and contexts which you don't have. Should he or she be from museum sector, wider cultural sector, or maybe other sectors? Should they be from your country or from another country, from your very local context and city, or from another city in your own country? So what sort of combination of knowing the context and knowing specific skills should that person have? What kind of approach to life he or she should ideally have? What sort of hobbies, interests? Usually also those things that are happening in the private life affect who is going to be a good mentor for you and who might kind of inspire you. Or to
okay, let us take pencils and papers and focus on our ideal mentor. So whom do we see?
Basically several minutes for that.
Yeah.
I will leave these questions here.
So if you have a possibility to choose, whom would you choose? How would you profile your mentor? Related to your goals, of course. We have some indecent proposals here. Yes. Okay. Those universities professors are really not serious persons. Don't choose them as mentors.
If you already have some names, write them down.
Yes, they do. They do. Obviously, they do. They are directors. They have to be a quick decision makers. Otherwise, the time will run them over. Okay, so profiling your mentors, dear colleagues. Do we have little hands on the screens? Okay, Markita, please come. Our colleague from Technical Museum, she is going to.
Perfect. There's no one online.
Well, that's a particular situation. I'm in very good terms with my predecessor, my colleague, who was director before me. And he is a kind of my mentor, but also psychological support, because we all need to have a therapy sometimes, to share our problems. And he's a person who knows my problems from inside. He knows the staff of the museum, he knows how they think, what they know, how they function, what their points of view on different things. He knows also the problems of leadership and financial issues and so from time to time we go for a coffee together, and I ask him for his opinion, and I share my problems with him. Nevertheless, there are always answers to my problems, but that's very important for me. So he's a kind of a mentor for me. So that's my case.
Thank you a lot for bringing this up, because I also had a feeling that in a lot of these kind of setting the goals and thinking about the skills and so on, we say in the end, okay, but we have all the skills that we need. Maybe there's just no resources. But even if we have skills and knowledge, it's so important that we also have support and someone to listen to us while we go through different troubles and stages and so on. And then
Daniela, maybe you can add something. You have found your...
Okay, all of my life, my mentor was and today is my professor from the Department of Ethnology and Anthropology in Belgrade. And she was president of the World Anthropology Association and some other associations in Southeast Europe. And she is a strong person with and she wants to help everybody, and it is a good quality.
Is it Mila?
It's his person. And she has many experience. And Goranka, thank you also for your support. It was very important for our museum and me.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for this. Let's go to the next step. Basically, where to search for a mentor once you have a profile. And there's, of course, these answers such as, I know a professor that has been supporting me, or my predecessor, or a colleague that is working in the museum in the same city or in another country whom I already know, and that is the easiest way to find a mentor. But then there's also numerous programs now for museum sector that haven't existed just a few years ago. So from the last year, there's been new programs opening. So NEMO is having one-on-one mentoring for museum professionals. Museum Association of America is having their own mentoring program, but also international. There's this Polaris online network only for museum mentors that is free of charge, for which you can apply and then be in the pool of both mentors and mentees, get a support through that way. There's Art Museum Curators Mentoring Program. In Creative Mentorship Program this year, we are planning to have a program only for museum leaders, not museum leaders, but cultural leaders in general from the region, which will include museum leaders and directors. So that is another kind of call to follow and maybe apply if you want to be in a formal program, in a formal setting, which usually lasts for several months or for the whole year, and usually has some more educational programs and networking and so on. But you can also be asking among your networks, colleagues and friends, searching through media and web. Many of you or many of us have these people whom we would like to have a coffee and chat with, but in a focused way, which are out of our reach. But we can reach them now through the online channels. And then there's also this idea, well, maybe there can be a program within your own museum which you can start and then get this kind of mentoring rolling also within your staff and not just for yourself. Let's see, I just don't know whether we have time for this, or we can leave this discussion of potential mentors for some of the kind of coffee breaks or closing remarks in the future.
Yes, I think we can go further, and I would really advise, you have brilliantly summed up and offered some of the possibilities which people then can use. Go to the websites, see if they can find a contact or the mentorship program according to their needs. And I think that's the best way, because this is really a diverse opportunity, and you know it's already on sites and available. So
Exactly, and you have all the links. So basically, what I would like to then move us toward is, if you don't decide to apply for one of those programs, how you can still enter a mentoring relationship and some tips related to that. So kind of sending email with this information about yourself, challenges and development goals, why you need a mentor and you think that particular person would be a good mentor for you, and then suggesting some sort of framework and time frame for your mentoring relation, whether you're asking for one meeting a month for the next 6 months in order to deal with a challenge or some other issue, and invite for the first meeting to discuss these expectations, dynamics, and time needed. Would say just a few advices for mentoring meeting as such, because sometimes we think we are on the mentoring session, but it's kind of just a friendly conversation. In order for it to be more structured or more relevant to us, it is useful to send an email or a message few days before the session, nominating a topic for discussion, a topic that is bothering you at that moment, but it is related to the wider goal. Then a typical meeting agenda for a 1.5 hour meeting would be basically discussing what's new since the last meeting or what is bothering you that is current. Then discussing the chosen topic and question for that day for another hour or so, and then leaving 15 minutes to kind of have a summary and follow up, and maybe some kind of either homework or additional reading or context or something you could do in the meanwhile until the next meeting. And basically after the meeting, it's really useful to have this sort of reflection and write down key things that you talked about, some thoughts and issues and advices that have moved you during the conversation, and then also what you need to do, consider, or change as a consequence of that conversation. And then if you approach a meeting in that way and have this sort of at least half an hour, it will be more likely that you will be integrating it into your everyday agenda and actually trying to move things forward. 5 important things or know-how for the mentoring relation: trying to get into it with this attitude of learning and trust. This is what all of you already know, but then it's the question how you can nurture that also within your museum team, and how we can support sharing and feedback and so on. What I said, how to conceive a meeting, how to prepare, how to choose a content, how much it lasts, and so on. All of that you will have kind of shared by me in this creative mentorship knowledge base, where the link is below. How to conceive topics for the meetings. You come with one goal, but then this goal can be structured into several different topics and can be tackled from different angles. And maybe the first meeting with a mentor is a good time to think about, okay, how are we going to kind of basically dissect or structure for the next few meetings? If the mentoring relationship is non-functional and it happens even when there is a big group of people trying to match a mentee and mentor, it is really okay to invite a mentor or mentee for another meeting and say that basically this is kind of not working. Thank for what has been done and try to go through the benefits that you had from the relationship. And basically it's always good to have some sort of date in which the formal relationship of mentoring will end, even if you continue to kind of meet and discuss and so on, but already in the beginning set some time frame so that the person knows how much time and effort they have to dedicate so they can say no or yes. And a lot of these issues and questions are discussed in the creative mentorship toolkits, but also within other mentoring programs. So I would say this was a very kind of less than an hour workshop, which usually lasts much longer, but it can give you a taste of what it means to be thinking about those questions. And I would say, hearing what are your goals, I would say maybe another challenge for the future is thinking how you can support yourself and your well-being as a leader, and not only think about the buildings, the employees, the resources, but how to actually stay strong, stable, resilient, open for the changes that await you. And for some of that, it might be good focusing on some of the personal and kind of life work goals and so on. So thank you very much. yeah, I would like us to discuss any questions that you have, any kind of doubts, insights, reflections, and so on.
Thank you, Višnja, and I'm sure that this is a good message at the end. So creative mentorship is really offering a nice possibility for you to find a mentor or to be a mentor. I passed through that experience also, and I really would recommend it as a rewarding experience, and I hope that you will decide to try one of those roles. Let us, and one also message that I find important that Višnja stressed, that museum directors should really a little bit move aside from buildings and money issues and those practicalities which are really a burden on our shoulders. We have to admit, all of us. But somehow in this process, we also have to think about some building up personal skills, new attitudes, etc. Because when we broaden the view, when we go outside the sector, exchange with people from different fields, we fuel the energy, we broaden the knowledge, and perhaps we can find ways to accomplish the tasks and goals we would like to manage in our positions. Questions and answers, please. Anyone online? The hands up.
I'm really curious to know also how challenging or how easy was it for you to go through some of these questions? How often do you sit with those questions in mind and have time to reflect? What are your needs personally?
Darko, you want to say something? Yeah. Oh, please, take it. Yes. I thought. Mm-hmm.
Well, of course, my position is slightly different, but anyhow, I will speak for myself. Yeah, I'm doing that from time to time, but in a sense of the personal development. But again, thinking about having the well, I'm working at university, which is all the way connected with the mentorship in classical sense, anyhow. But it was interesting to look slightly differently from my usual position. So in my case, it was very interesting to do that kind of the practice, but colleagues will comment in their sense, either here or online.
Hello, Darko, from here, just really nice to see you.
Yes, Alenka, please. Yes.
Well, these are issues that I actually deal with quite a lot. One is what Goranka emphasized, how to switch from these problems that actually cannot be solved immediately. This is financial, this is building, keeping the storages, the depots, and so on, and to switch to things that you can actually do a lot of good if you just open and try to solve in this present time. Then we always have to think about what is the good way to step a few steps back. This is something that I do a lot, trying to be better, not to do everything on the first ball, as we say. Sometimes it's the wrong decision, according to what actually I emphasized in my answer. This is if you have a happy staff, satisfied staff, you can do a lot. You can be creative, you can be innovative, and you can do much more on other fields as a director if you have this group of people that you can really trust, and you can also be in this trust zone with them. This is, for me, the most difficult thing after the COVID time, after pandemic. Even though we all think everything is ended, we can do a lot of things, but I think this is a huge topic. And I would really like to have a mentor, to have time for me. That's, I think, the most important. Other skills, maybe not that much. Thank you.
Yes, Tara, Alexander, please.
Yes, Višnja already mentioned that I was a part of a creator mentorship program, and I think the first step is to admit yourself that you will gain something from external mentorship or some kind of advisory. That's both for personally and for professional, for institutional. So that is a really huge step forward to your professional or personal development. You can gain a lot. You could learn how to actually the accept kind of feedback that you not fight against. You should accept that you really, after that you will really improve your skills. You really will develop more, and you will gain kind of more of self-esteem. You will be convinced that actually you are doing the right thing. That's the most important for me, and I will actually advise everybody to search for it. It's really hard to admit, because it's some kind similar to admit that you need some kind of psychology assistance, that you need psychologists. That is also kind of your internal fight that but once you admit yourself that you will gain from it, that's the other thing, and that's the unlimited possibilities after that.
And thanks a lot, Alexander, for mentioning this, just because I think there's a big misconception that mentoring is for those who are young, who are emerging in the professional field, and who need help. And basically, I think throughout the program and our experience in the program, it has been those people who are in their later stages of career that have profited the most, because they know exactly what are the challenges. They have been very embedded in their own professional surrounding, and now this is the next stage for them. So.
Yes, definitely. And it is also a rewarding role of the mentor, because you also, get the feedback from other people, which is important. Sometimes you got stuck with your role and that's it. Maya, please, would you like to enter the discussion?
I'm sorry, something has changed on my toolbar. My hand was now is hidden. Before it was visible. Sorry. I just wanted to add that I would like to go back to the beginning of today's session, because what you were, thank you, Višnja, very much for the lecture. But basically, possibility to have a mentor and ask for a mentor is ABC of being a good museum leader. If you cannot find a mentor or someone you can ask in different fields, we have questions, because as we already heard, most of us come from academia, from art history, archaeology, from those fields, and we lack so much knowledge that is needed today to be a good leader, a museum leader. So if you cannot provide your staff with mentorship, not the official, not the formal one, but that they can come to you and ask for all sorts of advice, from private life, how to cope with work, how to deal with their future professional development. You cannot do a thing in a museum. I've never had some kind of mentorship that was organized or formal, but on daily basis, the older I get, more I ask other people who have specific knowledge for help. While you were working, I was asking 5 people at least for some things about some digital questions. So mentorship, I think, is the basis of good leadership and functioning in any organization. The problem is that somehow in our region, people have a tendency to know everything. And that's the problem. They have a tendency that they are afraid to ask, because if they ask, they're not going to be considered as knowledgeable or professional. That's crap. Sorry. I mean, the ability to ask questions and look for mentors, formal or not formal, that's the basis of success. If you don't know how and whom to ask, that's the problem. Sorry, that's all.
Thank you, Maya, for your insight. Lydia, please.
Yes, hello to everyone. I'm coming from Kikinda Museum, and I was also part of a mentoring program, I think 10 years ago. And it was a very interesting experience because my mentor was Olga Svoboda. She is expert in the field of human resources, actually, and HR. And she's working with the big industrial companies. My first thought was that I don't have nothing common with her work, actually. But the point is that all the directors, it doesn't matter from what field they're coming from, we all have together the same problems and the same problems that has to be solved. So you can find your own mentor maybe in your city, that can be some director of some industrial firm or something else, or someone who is coming from private sector, because the thing is everything is the same. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in a place of director of the museum or director of some big industrial complex. You have to have some skills for that. So that will be my suggestion to everyone.
Thank you, Lydia. Okay, so we are coming close to our program today. I would like to thank everybody for taking part in it. I hope you find it inspirational. I would like to thank Višnja once again for a really, how to say, a short slalom through the mentorship program. I'm sure many of you will check the website and see what are the opportunities there, because it's really well led process, and you can benefit a lot in any of the roles you choose. And of course, our materials will be available online on ICOM Croatia, ICOM Southeast Europe, and Intercom. Our research publications are there, also available on Intercom website, ICOM Museum mini website, which are downloadable for free in English, so you can use them. I would like to also announce that we are going to continue with our programs. We will have a workshop in Brežice, and in May, we are having a large conference in Doha, Qatar. ICOM Qatar is also a partner in the program. It will be on leadership with really high-profile lectures and keynotes, like Dr. Vlaka Krupić, who is one of the key experts in human resources, then Pier Luigi Sacco from UNESCO. We will have Desmond Hui from Asia, Sheikha Alma from Qatar. We will have people from CIMAM, Catherine Garnier leading workshops, and of course, a lot of presenters. So please do follow the program, because it will be, how to say, very available with a very low conference fee and a lot of promotions. So maybe you may consider attending. Thank you very much, and let us stay in touch.
Hvala svima, doviđenja.
Doviđenja, hvala.
Pozdrav svima.
Pozdrav svima.
Doviđenja, pozdrav svima.
is king. Crowned you with my heart. Your love is king. Never needs you part. Your kisses ring. Round and round and round my head, touching the furry part of me. It's making my soul sing. It's tearing the very heart of me. I'm crying out for more. Your love is king. Crowned you